Go for it.
Good morning. I'd like to thank the union for providing me this opportunity to explain my views and explain why I'm running for Nevada County Supervisor in District 4. My name is Fran Cole, and I'd like to provide a little background information on myself. I was born in a small farming community in central Indiana, Peru, Indiana, sort of the heart of the breadbasket of the Midwest. And I've retained many of those rural values. I wanted them for my children. So my family and I moved to Nevada County so we could provide them the same kind of life. After growing up in rural Indiana, I then went to college and received a bachelor's degree in political science at the University of Vermont. I then went to the University of Virginia School of Law, and after graduating there, went to work in several large law firms, first in Cincinnati and then a large law firm in San Francisco. I then went to work for several corporations, and my final city job was as chief counsel and a senior vice president of Charles Schwab Investment Management in San Francisco. And that was my dream favorite job. I worked as a regulatory and business lawyer, providing expertise in contracts and securities law, and I was there for a little over 10 years. And then in 1999, I moved to Nevada County, and we moved to a horse ranch, and I've been there ever since. I have been very involved in local nonprofits. I have provided them legal advice and also volunteered in other capacities. I'm the former president and director of the Bear Yuba Land Trust. I'm on the board of the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Coalition, and I'm the longest serving dog walker at Sammy's Friends Animal Shelter. I'm running for the Board of Supervisors because I believe that this background in financial expertise that I have, together with my private business experience, would be of great benefit to our county.
Okay. And your current hometown is, did you say Lake Wildwood?
No, I live in South County off McCourtney Road on a horse ranch there with my family.
Okay.
I have a husband who is a retired landscape contractor, and I have two daughters. One is a senior at Nevada Union, and the other is a student at Sierra College.
Okay. And your campaign website is?
My campaign website is francole.com, and I also have a Facebook page for the campaign called Vote Fran Cole.
Okay. And did you say your age? I'm sorry.
I admitted my age, but I'm 58 years old.
Okay. Okay. And are you a registered political party person? What?
I have been a registered Democrat my entire life. My family were also, all of my family members are registered Democrats. I would consider myself a fiscal conservative and, very liberal on the social issues that I think are very important to us in a changing world.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll have our 3 questions.
All right.
And where do you stand on the medical marijuana cultivation ordinance that now is set for the November ballot? Mm-hmm. And in general, where do you stand on the issue of legalizing medical and recreational marijuana?
Okay. Well, I tend to take a very long view and a very pragmatic perspective on most issues, including this one. And starting with the background, California voters approved the use of medical marijuana, so that's the law, and that's what I use as my starting point. I believe that this issue is fascinating because it involves all aspects of our community and all perspectives. It involves protecting neighbors against nuisances, protecting our children from unlawful use of drugs or being exposed to that. It has economic implications. It has implications for health care. It has implications for law enforcement. It truly, to me, is the most broad-based and encompassing issue we have in our county. That being said, I believe that neighbors have to be protected. And the problem with the California law as it is that it was enacted and approved medical marijuana, but the implementation was left to localities with very little guidance. And that has led to difficulties in implementation and variations throughout the state, and then changes and more changes. it appears that in 2016 there will be initiative on the ballot that will legalize recreational use of marijuana. So again, I tend to be pragmatic and I tend to take the long view. And with that being the case, we have to keep that in mind moving forward. We need to protect against the nuisances. I understand, however, that there's a significant backlog in properties being checked. So I'm not sure the appropriate balance has been struck. I think the appropriate balance is out there, that we're trying to find it, but I don't believe that the current ordinance does that. There are issues with respect to how that is to be enforced, some irregularities and ambiguities in the ordinance itself that really causes problems both from the grower's perspective and the law enforcement perspective. The growers feel that it does not offer them enough flexibility, and law enforcement has troubles enforcing the square footage requirement. I have a long history as a regulatory lawyer in drafting regulations and working with them, and I believe that regulations should be clear enough to both parties involved know what's expected of them. And if it's not, I believe that is a problem. I'm also very concerned that we need to regulate as a high priority what's happening in the public lands with the bigger grows, the cartels, polluting our waters, killing our wildlife. I'm very concerned about that. So I believe that regulation of marijuana would, first of all, enable us to address the bigger issues. Some of the bigger issues, I believe, are methamphetamine use and the overabuse of alcohol in our community. And I would rather see law enforcement efforts devoted towards that. I am glad that other states have moved forward with their own recreational initiatives. I believe, again, that it will become law in California, if not in 2016, shortly thereafter. So I believe it's great that we can see the trials and tribulations of implementation of that in other states, because I think there'll be great learnings from that. So I think it is happening. I believe that we need to protect our children, protect our neighborhoods, and allow the flexibility for medical marijuana users that really need it. So I believe it's all going to become very clear in the next 2 years what's going to happen. And I think we need to have a long perspective and make sure that we're considering, first of all, also the economic benefit to our community, which is kind of the elephant in the room, something that is rarely discussed. But I think if there are revenue opportunities for the county, it would greatly help us in economic development, which is one of the cornerstones of my platform.
Okay. Thank you. And next question, and you feel free to look at me also if you don't want to keep looking at that. What would you do about getting more rural, more high-speed internet access in the rural areas of District 4?
So the question is about how to achieve higher speed internet in District 4. This is a huge issue for me. I believe that the lack of broadband in our county is really the key impediment to our county moving forward in economic growth. I believe that there are a lot of great private organizations now that are working on this. One of the issues we face, obviously, is the fact that the fixed site, line of sight broadband doesn't work very well in our county for all situations because of its rural nature. And there is extensive fiber optic cable that's been laid, but there's some implementation problems with that, and that agreements with the purveyors of the layers of the cable to make sure that that last mile problem is resolved. And the last mile really is critical because so many of us have seen that orange cable being laid in front of our houses and don't have access to it. And Smarter Broadband and Spiral are both organizations that are working really hard with the Public Utilities Commission to try to get approval to move forward. They face competitive challenges. The existing providers are not, even if they aren't actively serving our community, are somewhat of a roadblock in terms of allowing new competition, even to areas that they don't currently service. And I think there are things that the county government can do that they're not doing now. And that would involve when a utility is laying cable to make sure that they also provide a conduit so the fiber optic cable can be laid. So, while the private sector is really what will drive the growth in internet being provided, there are things the government can do, and I'm not sure that we are taking a proactive enough role to make sure that that happens.
Great. Thank you. Okay, the last question. What do you think is the most important issue for you in District 4 and Nevada County, and what do you propose to do about it?
I think the most important area that the government can provide tremendous value in is economic growth, promotion of businesses, and promotion of jobs. And I don't feel that our local government has done enough to date. What I see happening extensively in our local government is that they view all issues of enterprise as really being up to the private sector. And again, as I said, I believe that the private sector does drive economic growth, but there are things that the government can do, and I don't believe that a hands-off philosophy is going to achieve what we need. You know, our country is coming out of recession, and we need to make sure that we aren't left behind. And again, you know, having high-speed internet is critical, is absolutely critical to that. Right now, all of the economic development spending that comes from our county, and that's taxpayer money, goes to the Economic Resource Council. And the Economic Resource Council appears to be making great strides. It now has an economic development business plan, which is something that had not been present in the past and something that is sorely needed. You know, I met this week with John Gregory, the new executive director of the Economic Resource Council, and he has some great ideas. But I think that the government too often gives the money to the Economic Resource Council, and there's not enough follow-through. There's not enough accountability. That's taxpayers' money, and the government is the fiduciary of those funds. So I think we need to make sure that there are milestones, that there are results that are being achieved, and really hold anyone that has our economic development funds accountable to make sure that those milestones are being met and we are indeed moving forward. And I don't believe that has happened in the past.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so it sounds like there's several different things that have brought you to decide to run for office, promoting economic growth, but I'll let you say what you think you can bring to the table that doesn't, that will make you the best qualified candidate.
The question is really about why I'm running and why I think I could bring a lot of value to Nevada County government. And I think there are really several reasons. First of all, why I'm running. I believe that my financial and business background, I've worked in the legal field as a business lawyer for 30 years. I also have worked in a business capacity in a management role for Charles Schwab and other financial management companies. And I believe that that experience is lacking in our county and something that could be very, very valuable going forward. I also am a proactive leader. I believe that we need innovative solutions for the future. I believe that the kind of business as usual, politics as usual approach is going to hold us back in the county going forward. For example, one area that I talk about quite a lot is prevention of catastrophic wildfires. And our county is really behind in accomplishing that. Other counties have had countywide ordinances in place that require reduction of hazardous fuel loads on uninhabited parcels that surround parcels with structures. We're talking about that now, but we've been talking about it for 8 to 10 years and nothing has happened. And I believe that puts our communities tremendously at risk. I also like to look at collaborative and innovative solutions for our county. And one such program in Placer County has a collaborative agreement with the fire service, where the county reduces the fuel loads on the property, and it ends up being an economic benefit because the vegetation is then sold and the jobs are created. Those are innovative new solutions, and I don't see things like that coming out of our county, and I believe we really need them. Last week we've had a number of community forums, and I love it because even though we're seeing a disaffection, especially at the national level with politicians, there's tremendous interest in the local supervisor's race. We have several forums a week. We're getting requests all the time. And I find that really encouraging because I believe that means that the voters know that we can really, really make a difference in a lot of respects. And last week at one of the forums, Supervisor Weston said, or he introduced his remarks by saying that he's never seen a regulation that he likes. And I find that, first of all, puzzling and troubling, because there are many regulations that are essential for the well-being and the quality of life in our community. You know, I'm on the board of the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Coalition. There are regulations that protect women, there are regulations that protect children, and the regulations that protect the environment. And I believe all those are critical. And to say, that you don't like a regulation is really, a statement that is puzzling to me, because this job, the job of supervisor, does require you to spend the majority of your time dealing with regulations. I'm a regulatory attorney. I've helped draft regulations. I've worked with governmental agencies. I've worked with organizations like the Land Trust. And I think we need innovative solutions. And on the final comment on the fire section, recently, I think it was just about 2 weeks ago, there was a study released from the Nature Conservancy, the Sierra Nevada Conservancy, and the Forest Service that showed that proper forest management and meadows restoration can result in a 75%, up to 75% reduction in the severity of fires in our region. Also, the cost and benefit analysis is a 3-to-1 benefit from taking actions in the forest to do that. So that's just one study, but again, I think we need to look at different solutions than we have in the past, because we're entering a world where we need to do that. I'm also a recent member joining the Biomass Task Force, because I wanted to learn a lot more about that. And that's a program that has tremendous potential. Placer County, for example, has a biomass coordinator, but that reduces hazardous fuel loads. It creates job and creates alternative energy. So it's a win situation. So we need someone that's proactive and forward-looking, that's involved in these. The other area that I believe I could offer value is, as the prior president of the Bear-Yuba Land Trust, I'm very involved in public recreation and protection of our rivers and water supplies. And I believe that one of the biggest challenges we'll face here in our region over the next few years is attacks and attempts to take the water from Nevada County and the rest of the Sierra Nevada region. And it's, that's only going to become worse as some of the recent programs being proposed in the governor's budget definitely do have possibilities to really have a disastrous effect on the water supply that we need here, for agriculture and for recreation, because agriculture is extremely important to our area, and our recreation is a draw for tourism and business. So as I look at these things, the hazardous wildfires, the need to protect our water, they're all integrally tied to economic development, which is my first priority.
Okay, great. Okay, fantastic. All right, so it sounds like, sounds like we're pretty complete. I do see that you feel that maybe the current administration is not as forward-looking, as regulatory focused as you feel you would bring to the table. So that's a key thing that you could, qualities that you could bring.
And what I didn't mention, I'm not running because I'm a woman, but I think it's very important to have diversity on the board, and we haven't had a woman on the board for many years. And it's really troubling that of the 58 counties, 1/3 have no women at all on the Board of Supervisors, and another third only have one. And we represent over 52% of the population, and we deserve representation. We bring a different viewpoint to the table. And I think that there is a decline in women in politics. We've seen it very seriously in our state legislature and state assembly. So I think it's really important, when I go to the Board of Supervisors, when I take my daughters, when I see other teenagers there, they need to see themselves reflected and feel that, the potential that they can also advance in however they would like to in their own careers.
Great. Okay, very good. You wanted to add some about the race itself, some points,
Yeah.
observations.
Another point I'd like to raise is that I have been very pleased with how our particular race has been conducted. Some of the other races have a little more posturing and more attacking. And when I first decided to run, I met several times with Supervisor Weston, and we talked about how to run this race and wanted to be issue based and not political, partisan, or attacking. And I think we've been, quite successful in doing that, and that's one of the things I'm proud of.
Thank you. You said you had some opinions on low-income housing and what you would do in that area.
Low-income housing has been a huge issue for the Penn Valley community over the last year. I have a fundamental difference in my approach and philosophies towards planning. And I believe that while low-income housing is a great safety net for people, and I'm all in favor of it, I believe that it needs to be placed in appropriate locations with infrastructure such as transit, jobs, and business activities for the people that are living there. What happened in our county was that the planner or the Board of Supervisors directed the planning department only to deal with willing owners to rezone property in Penn Valley that's necessary to meet the mandatory housing requirements. As a result, almost 42% of that low-income housing rezoning was located in the little town of Penn Valley. And Penn Valley does not have infrastructure to handle that. It requires, obviously sewers, septic, transit, and jobs. And I believe that is a very poor result and really was a result of lack of appropriate planning principles being provided from the outset. The other item I wanted to mention is as I've been thinking about this race, it seems to me that my election offers tremendous benefits in another area that really hasn't been raised in this campaign. I like Supervisor Weston. I respect and honor his long years of community service. But I believe that I am the best qualified candidate with my business legal experience and my extensive involvement in the nonprofit community. And if you elect me, Supervisor Weston will continue as a community servant. He's been very involved in the consolidated fire district negotiations, and that's not so much in his role as supervisor, but due to his long history as a firefighter. If you elect me, he will have more time to work on the consolidated fire matter, and it will free him up to devote time to that. And then you'll also have the additional benefit of having my business, legal, and community expertise on the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, thank you.